Hey everybody, this is Rob from ANS Gear Customer Service. In this video, we're going to go over a really common question that we get, which is, what pressure do I need coming out of my regulator? What regulator do I need for my gun? So here I have the main types of Ninja regulators. All the pressures that I'll be talking about are also available through other regulators like First Strike, the HK Aerolite, and a few others that are adjustable based on what pressure you're going to need. So we'll start with two regs that you probably don't need. Probably not. So the first two are going to be the Ninja Pro V2, SHP, and SLP. So the SLP stands for super low pressure, which is seen here. This regulator was created specifically for Bob Long and Field 1 guns. That's why Ninja made this. And it also works well on Angel markers. It's going to output at 300 PSI. So if you don't have one of those two markers, you do not need an SLP reg. If you were to go with an SHB reg, super high pressure, seen here. They look very similar. It's because just the internals are a little bit different. This regulator is going to output at 1100 PSI, which is very high, higher than most guns need. If you have something like a Tippmann gun with a response trigger, this may be helpful. It may help you reach a little bit higher rates of fire. You're not going to get any drop off, and the gun can take that much pressure. 1100 PSI, similar to like CO2 when it's hot outside, closer to 1000 PSI. Also works great for T15 guns that have select fire kits. When you're shooting full auto, this will have a great recharge rate to make sure that you don't have any weird skipping or anything like that. Now, if you do not have any of those guns, you don't necessarily need either of these two regulators. So I'm just going to move these to the side. And for 95% of you, you are going to need one of these. So these two regulators over here, I have in my hand, this is the adjustable regulator, which is Ninja's standard 4500 PSI reg. Another version of this is found on the 3000 PSI bottles. And this is the ultralight. This is the ultralight. You can see they look very, very similar. That's because they have the same internals. So these two regulators from the factory are going to output at 800 PSI. That's safe for pretty much any paintball gun. Very small exception to that, as we mentioned before, like an Angel or maybe a Bob Long or Field 1 gun that recommends a different pressure. You can adjust the pressure from 800 PSI down to 450. So it's very close to an SLP regulator already. I prefer having something like this for even your high-end guns because you can still get it down really, really low. And you won't run into any rate of fire problems if you do shoot at a higher rate of fire that is not regulated by a league or something like that. So over here, we have our Pro V2 regulators. So this is the regular Pro V2, one of the best on the market. And then we've got our new Pro V2 Ultralight. That is the ultralight bonnet, comes in a bunch of different colors. So internally, these are the same as well. You're going to be able to adjust it from 800 PSI down to 450. And for all of these regulators, it can go on pretty much any high-end, any mid-range gun, and also low-end markers if you're using a compressed air tank and you'd like to have a regulator on it from one of these companies. So the other question that we get is, do I need an SLP reg for my insert high-end gun here? No. For the most part, no. Again, other than the two guns we mentioned in the beginning of the video, Field 1 Bob Long or Angel, you really don't need a super low pressure regulator. So, that's probably the most common question that we get on this type of thing. And again, 95% of you, most guns on the market can safely accept 800 PSI, which is what all of these regulators come at out of the box from the factory, and others do as well. And you can always adjust it down if that's something that you want to do to put a little bit less wear on your regulator components, or make something like your on-off easier. For example, a Pops ASA is a little bit tough with 800 PSI. With 450, it would be very easy to engage that. Other than that, you don't need to change anything. Most guns can, like I said, safely accept 800 PSI, and there is no performance difference by dropping the pressure drastically. And when in doubt, go in your user manual to whatever marker you have, or call the manufacturer and ask them what they think. A lot of manuals will tell you exactly how much they say is their recommended pressure based on their stock settings. So if the manufacturer says 600 PSI would be great, perfect. You can pick up one of these regulators that is adjustable versus the other two which are not, the super high or low. And go in there, use your user manual. You would just remove a couple components called shims out of this regulator, and you would get it down to a pressure that is recommended for that marker. So, in conclusion, if you do not have a Field 1 gun or Boblong, an Angel, a T15 with a remote line or a select fire kit, or something like a Tippmann A5 with a response trigger or a 98, you do not need a super high or super low pressure regulator. You do not need to adjust yours down to 200, 300 PSI. These regulators will work just fine. Even the basic regulators that we see on some of the Empire and First Strike tanks are going to work no problem at all. So if you have any other questions on this, go ahead and comment below, or you guys can give us a call, and would be happy to explain any of this to you and make sure that you get the correct regulator on your gun. If you have any more questions, let us know, ansgear.com.